Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Okay, so this is the 15th chapter of Adi-lila, the Lord's Boganda-lila, between the ages of 5 and 10, what the Lord was, his pastimes, his activities. And in text 5, it's noted here that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, at that time known as Nimai Pandit, he was engaged in learning Sanskrit. And it says here, Srila Prabhupada's saying here, that anyone serious about studying the Sanskrit language should first learn the grammar, because Sanskrit grammar is the gateway to education. And so it's not a subjective opinion or a cultural bias to say that Sanskrit grammar is the gateway to education, because the grammar of Sanskrit, how it is noted, is very scientific. It's a very scientific language. And you can see when you learn the consonants of Sanskrit that they actually scientifically go through the different parts of the mouth. They start here, ka, ka, ga, and then they go ka, ga, and then you add. So you have, it starts in a certain part of the mouth, the ka, and then the same sound, but is added some sound, so ka becomes ga, and like that. So there's four consonants, and each one is in the same part of the mouth, or then it's just aspirated. So there's ka becomes ka with a ha sound in it. So like this, all of the consonants are very scientifically described, 1, 2, 3, 4 in each line. And that is just the letters, not even in the grammar. But we may not be able to spend 12 years, nor we may not have the intelligence or the inclination to learn all of the grammar of Sanskrit, or some devotees do, but not everyone may be able to. But at least to whatever degree we can, we should take advantage of the high technology of Sanskrit compared to all of the languages, the modern languages, which are very much informal, that have developed over many years with different words just being brought in arbitrarily and so forth. Even in the Indian languages, in Hindi, for example, there's a lot of Sanskrit, but there's a lot of other words that don't follow the grammar and that don't follow the etymology and derivation of Sanskrit. What to speak of languages that are very much distant from Sanskrit, like English and Spanish and the European languages. They do trace their roots back to Sanskrit. But if we learn Sanskrit to whatever level we can, so even the young children, so Mother Parthasarthi is doing a wonderful program with the small kids where she's teaching them slokas. And actually this morning, while we were getting ready to come to the temple, we had the class of Prabhupada on, and Srila Prabhupada's quoting some slokas in Sanskrit. What was that? Matra spashasta konteya sitoshna sukha dukada. And my daughter Janava could see that, could hear that, and started saying the sloka along with Srila Prabhupada, and saying, "Oh, Prabhupada's saying the sloka, listen." So like that is very, very nice service that Mother Parthasarthi is doing by giving the small kids exposure to Sanskrit and slokas at a young age. And so at whatever age we start, any age, we'll get great benefit. And I know for myself, I was very fortunate that when I was a new devotee, one devotee called Nasringa Kavacha Prabhu came to our temple, and he had a little index cards. They're not so common now because we have computers, but back in the day, index cards were very common, about this big. You can still get them at the newsagent. And that's how the libraries would keep charge of their books and everything like that. And he had written on the Sanskrit slokas, and then under each word, he'd written the meaning of each word in red pen. And I thought that was a great idea, so I also did that. And so many years later now, I can, say the slokas, and although I'm not trained in Sanskrit grammar, I do not know all of the Sanskrit vocabulary, but at least those slokas that I'm saying, that I'm remembering and speaking, I know what every word means of those slokas. So therefore, rather than just, just parroting the word, and then saying the English translation, which is also good. So just by saying the Sanskrit, we will get purified. But better if we can, especially when we're young, if we have some system like some cards or something where we just note down under each word what the meaning of the word is. And then later on in life, we'll be very happy that we did that, right? Because we'll be saying these slokas and we can actually hear the meaning of these slokas. Aham sarvasya prabhavo, Krishna is saying, Aham, I am, prabhavo, the manifesting, Aham sarvasya prabhavo, sarvasya, everything. So Krishna, he's saying, I of everything am manifesting prabhava. Matta, from me, sarvam, everything, pravartate, emanates, pravartate. Iti matvam, this or thus, iti matvam, knowing, bhajante mam, worship me, Buddha bhava samanvita, the Buddha, the very intelligent persons. So like this, we are able to absorb our minds very, very nicely in Krishna's words, and the words of all the different sages who have written these great slokas of Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. And it's a very simple way. And if we have the inclination to learn Sanskrit grammar, then also we should do that. But at least we should try to, at any age. And we might say, oh no, I can't do that. I'm too old, I'm too whatever. I can never do that. But if it's something that we find very unnatural, very unnatural to our mind, or very, very hard to do for our mind, then we can understand that it's something that's taking us to a higher level, right? Just like when the children first goes to school and they're only in grade 1, learning the letters, it's very hard. They're like, oh, it's too hard, something like that they say. It's too hard, I can't do it. But that too hard means that we're actually learning something. We're actually learning something. So any time, at any age, we can try, and no need to get discouraged. But the point here, as Srila Prabhupada's noting about Sanskrit grammar, the pastimes of the Lord, is that Sanskrit itself is a very special language. It's a very special language. And we can take advantage of this. And although the meaning is there in the English, and Srila Prabhupada did give English books, he wrote everything in English, but we can note very carefully that Srila Prabhupada didn't just write everything in English, right? He actually took the trouble to transliterate the Sanskrit, or the Bengali in this case, give it how we can actually chant it, and then give synonyms. So if Srila Prabhupada didn't think it was important, then why did he do it? No, he must have thought it important to take all the trouble. How much time he could have saved in publishing his books if he didn't put the Sanskrit in there? Would have saved so much time. But no, he took the trouble. He took the trouble, we can say, that's the fact. Because we can't say. Who am I to say why because? But at least some part of that, we can understand that Prabhupada, I think clearly, wanted us to access this incredible resource he gave of actually giving us the meaning of each word in the Sanskrit, in the Bengali, that we can further, engage our mind. So we're engaging our mind in so many things. We have some technical art, or we do some occupation, we have to really engage our mind in that. Well, we have to know what everything means. We can't just say, oh, there's a red button and a green button and turn some machine. I don't know, some days I press the green button, some days I press the red button. No, we won't maintain our occupation, right? We will be failures. We have to know very carefully. So that same application of our minds, if we're serious about spiritual advancement, we have to apply that same intensity that we apply to our occupation, that we apply to driving our car or whatever we're doing in the world. We have to apply that same, consciousness. Not be lazy about the Shastra. We can't be lazy about the Shastra. To whatever degree we put our attention into our whatever we're doing, our windsurfer, and how we hold the thing and everything, or whether we whatever we do, whether it's our money and we're studying the stock market, or whatever intensity we give to the material world, and we're very careful with our intelligence and applying our intelligence, that same level we have to give, and actually we have to give more. We have to give more intensity and application of our intelligence to the scriptures, to the Shastra, to try to understand this. This is the real challenge of our intelligence, to understand what is being said here, right? And it's not just going to give us some material enjoyment or some relief from material suffering or some material benefits in terms of getting a wage or something. It's actually going to solve all the problems of this lifetime, right? So we have to apply that to it, and we can, as much as we can, access the Sanskrit literatures, even if it's just trying to learn some slokas and meditate on that, what Krishna is saying. So in verse 9 here, we're going to see that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is asking his Mother Sachi, he's asking her for a boon. He's asking her, please give me a benediction, right? And she says, yes, whatever you want, I'll give to you, right? Please give me one thing in charity. Please, I'm begging in charity one thing. So Mother Sachi is saying, sure, whatever you want, I'll give you. Then the Lord says, my dear mother, please do not eat grains on the Ekadasi day. Now, Srila Prabhupada is quoting a verse that Srila Jiva Goswami is quoting in his Bhakti Sandarbha. And this is from the Skanda Purana. Who's Skanda? Who knows who is Skanda? You don't know who is Skanda? You lived in South India? Skanda is Kartikeya, no? Yeah? One of the sons of Lord Shiva? Skanda. Murugan. Skanda. We'll check it, but this is my understanding that Skanda is one name for. But that could also be another meaning, obviously, many meanings. So we'll look into that. But anyway, so from the Skanda Purana, one of the Puranas, Jiva Goswami is quoting that is very heavy quote, right? Listen to this again. A person who eats grains on Ekadasi becomes a murderer of his mother, father, brother, and spiritual master. And, right, first of all, that's very heavy, right? So what does that mean? That means that eating grains on Ekadasi affects not only us, but even affects our mother, our father, our parents, right? This is something very heavy, obviously. It's being described here, that the eating of grains on Ekadasi, it can be the detriment to one's own spiritual life, such that one can't even perform the rites that they perform for their mother and father. So in the Vedic tradition, it's very, very important that the children will offer various rites and purificatory rituals to the parents and the grandparents and all those people who passed on. We hear that this arena, this earthly planet, is the arena of sacrifice, right? It's the arena where you can do sacrifice, you can work hard, you can perform various rituals, whereas other parts in the universe, they're more about getting the results of your punya, your good karma, or then getting the results of your bad karma. There's more of a just getting the results of the karma, whereas the karma is created here. This is the place of creating the karma and making the decisions about which way you're going to go. This is the bhumi. It's in the middle of the universe. So here, when the ancestors go to the Pitri Loka, they go to where the ancestors go. They need to have the people that are left behind that do various rituals to purify them, in case that due to some bad karmas that they had in this lifetime, they're suffering or they're caught up in something, then these rituals are offered. So in this way, if someone is not following a codicy, he's affecting his mother and father even, and spiritual master. Very heavy. Because by them engaging in simple activities, in very karmic activities down here, it stops them. Actually, in the beginning of Gita, this is one of the arguments, right, that Arjuna gives to Krishna, isn't it? That if the heads of the family are killed, then the families won't engage in these kind of purificatory activities. The offerings to the ancestors will be stopped, right? Literally, Arjuna says this. A very important point. We can see that this is something very, very, very much lacking in the Western culture. We see it's very, very common all over the world. There's only a small fraction of people who don't pay a lot of attention to their ancestors. We see in South America, in Africa, all over India and Asia, there's all kinds of traditions in all cultures that they'll offer candles and prayers and things to the ancestors on different, particularly holy days. This time that has just happened, the Amavasya, or the dark moon that has just happened, is actually called Pitri Paksha or Sava Pitri Amavasya, where this is the particular time of the year to offer things to offer prayers and prasadam to our ancestors. So we can also do that in our way, even if we don't have all of the particular technical prayers and everything, but still we can offer prayers of gratitude and thanks for purification. We can take some food, offer it to the Lord, and then offer that to our ancestors. In this way, we benefit them, and we also benefit ourselves by fulfilling that role that we have, that those who are still embodied here in this world, to offer some purification to our ancestors. So like this, the codicy, if somebody doesn't follow codicy, then they're affecting not only themselves but others. And even if he's elevated to a Vaikuntha planet, he falls down, right? So this is from the Skanda Purana. So we can see here that, as evidence given here, that even if you're elevated to a Vaikuntha planet, you can still fall back down to the material world, right? Even if he is elevated to a Vaikuntha planet, he falls down. One who doesn't follow a codicy. Very, very strong statements here. Of course, that is discussed many times. How is it possible to fall down from Vaikuntha? And Srila Prabhupada, just actually this morning, I was listening to a class, this morning or last night? This morning. A class that's in Melbourne, May 22nd, 1975, I believe. It's definitely May 22nd. And Prabhupada's asked this question as he's explaining this point. And this class and other classes, he explains that we do fall down, but in one sense we don't fall down. So one has to have a very sober, cool head and a spiritual intelligence to understand this. How is it possible that we fall down but we don't fall down? So I thought to give one example analogy that is sometimes used in this case, that if somebody is, say the mother is there at home and the children are there and the mother's cooking, then we'll see that the mother's cooking in the kitchen, but the children, they don't have the ability, they're not able to actually cook in the kitchen, but they see their mother doing it. And actually the acharyas say this is like the reason that we come into this material world. So sometimes we hear it's out of envy of Krishna. We think, how can we be envy of Krishna? We're right there. But the acharyas also explained a very nice way that it's like we see Krishna doing that, being the enjoyer, doing that, and we think, oh wow, he's so amazing, well, I'd like to do what he's doing. Just like the children are in the kitchen seeing the mother cooking, right? They're seeing the mother cooking, they say, oh, we'd like to cook like the mother, right? But they can't deal with the hot oil is fried there, they might hurt themselves, the knives are sharp, they can't actually cook. So what do? They go into the backyard and they get in the sandpit and they start cooking and they make the patties, the pies, and they have the mud pies there and they offer to each other and I'm going to be the, what is it you guys play? Shopkeeper, and somebody else is going to be the customer. All right, so they play all these little games like that because they're imitating the mother, right? They're imitating the mother of what she's doing, right? So if the children, so if we extend that analogy somewhat, if the children are in the yard playing and making their mud pies and things, then in one sense they have left the association of the mother, right? They're out of that world, they're in their own little world now. So in that sense, they have left. But then in another sense, they're still with the mother. They're still in the yard. They're still in the shelter of the mother. So this is a simple example. We can see that in one sense they've left, and in another sense they haven't left. They're still there, right? And then sometimes So this is an interesting analogy. We can look at from different angles of how this works. One thing to note is that the impersonal view, the impersonalists say that there is no individual soul and that all the individual souls are merely parts of the Supreme Soul that is covered by false ego, right? This is their philosophy. That there's one Supreme Soul and it's just covered by false ego, and that false ego is what creates the separate soul. And therefore they say that it is out of the pastime, the Supreme Spirit, the Supreme Whole wants to enjoy or have different pastimes, and that's why the Supreme decides to do that. Now, if we look at this analogy, do we ever see that the mother, if she's actually cooking and real things, does she take great pleasure? And of course there may be pleasure in going and playing with the children and doing something, but on her own, just on her own, would she herself take pleasure in going and playing, making mud pies and everything like that, if she can make real pies? We don't see that. It doesn't make any sense. So even in this analogy, it makes sense from what we see that the individual souls are separate from the Supreme Soul. They're like the children of the Supreme Soul. They want to go and play. So I don't know if I've lost everyone here. Maybe this is getting a bit too, the analogy is going too far. But this is the explanation given that we have simultaneously left from the spiritual world, but in another sense, our soul is still there. What is still in the spiritual world is our soul. Our soul doesn't really want to come and engage. It doesn't actually interact, but it wants to experience, just like Another example, someone might like to sit and watch a movie, and they want to identify, say it's a war movie, someone's going and they're watching a movie about a battle and everything. They want to experience that. So they're sitting there watching, you know, the battle's going and the bullets are flying, everything, and they're enjoying that experience of identifying, oh yes, this guy's coming, and then there's a big explosion, and then they had to run. They're identifying. But do they actually want to get in there and get shot? No. Right? So are they actually getting shot? No, but they're experiencing that. So this is the situation of our soul. Our souls don't actually have material desire, but they just have that initial desire to experience some like imitation of Krishna's activities or some separate activity. But really what our souls want is to awaken, is to be in connection with the Supreme Soul, with Krishna, with the Supreme Lord. That is what our souls are hankering for. And no matter how much we are down here trying to make mud pies and play in our sandpit, what we really want is our mother's love, our father's love. Right? So what we really want is to go back, and when, like in that analogy of the kids playing in the yard, when the mother calls, come on, time for prasadam. We've got some yummy cakes. So the kids who are, you know, a little bit intelligent will give up the mud pies and, we got real cheesecake, pizza. They'll go and eat the real food, right? So that's the thing. Krishna is calling us, you know, come, we have some real enjoyment. This is real. Your soul is spiritual. You need spiritual enjoyment. You can't have dead matter enjoyment for the soul. Right? Our false ego, our bodies, our mind, intelligence, there's some interaction by achieving material things, but for the soul, there's no actual enjoyment. There's no actual experience, actually. The soul is not actually experiencing anything by interaction of material elements. But the soul wants to love the Supreme Soul. This is bhakti yoga. The soul wants to purely love and interact on a spiritual level. And that's something we can reawaken, that consciousness, even in this world. We can reawaken that consciousness. So I'll stop there and leave some time for questions if there are any. Yes.
So, very nice analogy, thank you. You mentioned that the soul is actually still in the spiritual world. I just want you to reconcile, the statement that the soul is localized and it's kind of floating in the different pranas, in the heart area, in the individual body.
Okay, thank you. Good question. The first thing is that the soul is still in the spiritual world, in the sense that the soul is eternal. And Krishna says very early in the Gita that there's two kinds of things in the world. There's only two kinds of things. There's things that are eternal and never change. And then there's things that are temporary and are always changing and never stay the same. They're always changing. So the soul is of that first category. It never changes. So in a sense, the soul is outside of material time. The soul's in the spiritual world, and when the soul has that desire to have some experience where it is the center of activities, then immediately the covering of false ego comes onto it, and the soul just becomes an inert watcher of that, watching that, how that goes. So the soul itself is still there. Now, that's from the spiritual perspective, looking from the spiritual world. And it's very important when we're talking about these kind of matters and when we're looking at shastras that describe these kind of matters, it's very important to see what's the perspective that the scripture's looking from. So that's the perspective of the and I'll give an example of that, okay, just for a second. An example of that is, from the spiritual perspective, the Shastras say that we've simply turned away from Krishna. We've simply turned ahead. Bahimukha. We have some desire to experience that position of Krishna as the enjoyer, as the center, and we just have that desire, and we just turn ahead. Bahimukha, towards the bahir, towards the external energy. And I'm turning my head towards Krishna, but actually, well, towards Prabhupada. I mean, maybe that way. It'd be like away from Krishna towards Vishnu Jampari. No, you're a devotee. I'm turning my head towards you, but it's a devotee. So like that. So that's the perspective from the spiritual world. But then we look at the acharyas, deep longings to get back to the spiritual world. We see that there's a very different perspective. They never talk about, I just need to turn my head back to Krishna. No. Like Gopinath, Mama Nivedana Shuno, Vishayi Durjana, Sada Kama Rata, Kichu Nahi Mora Guna, right? Oh Gopinath, I have no good qualities. Gopinath, Mama Nivedana Shuna, please hear my prayer. Vishayi Durjana, I'm the most fallen person that is so absorbed in this material world. Sada Kama Rata, I'm always attached to lust and all of these things. Please help me. I'm so fallen. I have no chance to help myself. They're like this prayer after prayer after prayer. They're giving this mood that I'm so fallen. I have turned away from you, and they maximize that, right? They don't minimize that. They maximize it. So that's looking from the material world up to the spiritual world. So in the same way, when we say that the soul is localized within the heart, that's us looking from the material world. So we're looking in the material world and we're saying, where can we perceive with our material conceptions, where can we perceive that the soul actually is living? Is the soul in our head, in our concentration? Is it in our arms where we conquer over the world? No, it's in our heart. If we want to look from the material perspective, the soul is in our heart, the deepest seat of our emotions and feelings and everything. And our consciousness. That's where the soul is living. So from the material world, from the material perspective, that's where the soul is living. I just want to go on from that. Something I wanted to mention is that Srila Prabhupada, is that okay? That's that question basically. But that just reminded me of one thing I wanted to mention, that Srila Prabhupada often mentions this verse, Palena Parichiyate, which means judge something by the fruits, right? Judge something by the fruits. This is not on that question, but the fruit of, if we think that the soul can never fall from Vaikuntha, if we think that the soul has never turned away from Krishna, then what happens is we think that Krishna has put us here, that it's not my fault. It's not my responsibility. You see? You see what I'm saying? That's the fruit of that philosophy, right? If we accept that we were just put here, we didn't actually make the choice to turn away from God. If we think we never made the choice to turn away from God, then we think, somebody else put me here. And basically, it removes that responsibility, that we are responsible for everything, whatever happens to us. Ultimately, we are responsible. Okay, of course, there are, we can get caught up in that there are crazy people in the world that do things and whatever. That's also there. That's no doubt. But ultimately, we have made the decision to come and enter into this material world, right? And almost all of the time, if we look at our own life and our own relationships with people, aside from exceptional cases, most of the time we are responsible for our relationships. We can decide we're going to relate in this way. We can decide to improve our relationships or move on and decide to relate, whatever. We have responsibility. That's the important thing. And the Acharyas give this through their poems that I've just mentioned, where they, time and time again, say, "Oh my Lord, I've turned away from you. I've turned away from you towards this horrible material world. Please allow me to come back. Please help me come back. And not only the Vaishnava tradition, we can read in the prayers of the Christian poets, in the Islamic poets. Every religion gives this same idea that we have turned away from God. Not that the God just arbitrarily threw us down here and threw some people into the spiritual world. No. So if we look at the fruit of something, then we can understand. Palina parichiyate, that the fruit of that understanding is that we don't take responsibility for where we are and how to get out of where we are. So that's also an important point. Okay. Thank you, Prabhu. Is there any other question? Yes, Ladini. Take the mic, then you can hear on the recording.
Thank you very much, Prabhu, for the half a class that I heard. I'm sorry I came in late.
That's okay.
Yeah, just this point that in a letter to Chaturbhuj, Srila Prabhupada's disciple, I can't remember what year it was, but Prabhupada is explaining that he's saying, okay, we know that the spiritual soul never comes into contact with matter, but it's the consciousness of the soul, the symptom of the soul that comes into contact with matter, in other words, the material concept of life. And when that happens, then the consciousness becomes polluted, and from there, the material life ensues. So it's not the spirit soul itself, but the consciousness of the spirit soul that is actually living, material life.
Yeah, thank you very much. Excellent. Yes. Yeah. So the spirit soul is a personality in the spiritual world. It has personality. It has eternal activities, right? But the consciousness of that is projected out into the material sphere. Yes. Yeah, so should we do that? Experience that. So the consciousness is projected out, but the soul itself doesn't have material activities. It's purely spiritual. Yes, Govinda, you had a question?
The Aboriginals connected with the ancestors by offering the food and making holy fires, and the smoke cleansed the bad habits and spirits that we brought with us.
Thank you very much. Yes. Did you learn that at school? Oh, where did you learn that? Oh, in that book, right? Yeah. Very nice. So thank you very much for sharing that. Thank you. Yes. Okay. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming for class. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to purify myself by glorifying Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.